Wychwood Brewery, King Goblin.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. This is a revisiting video, and I'm revisiting a beer which I would never ever drink again. And I do watch the occasional beer review now and again. Now, I don't do this to try and get ideas and stuff. I try to keep my stuff on this channel original as possible, but I do watch the occasional reviewer, just see what they're up to, see what they're doing. And there's a Scottish fella called Sofa King Drunk. Check out his channel. Quite good, quite entertaining. And he was doing a shootout with King Goblin, Old Peculiar, and what was the other stuff? There was another beer, and my fucking mind's gone blank. But he was reviewing King Goblin, and this came out top. And I remember thinking, it's a Mastons beer. How could that be Old Peculiar? Now, I know beer sometimes can vary from year to year depending on the hop yield and the malt yield and whatnot, and obviously the climate has a lot to do with it as well. And that's not just English beers and UK beers, that's in general. But I do remember King Goblin being okay when I first reviewed it. Now, this was a long time ago. This was more or less when I first started reviewing beer on YouTube, and that would have been about 3 years ago. So I thought, I need to check that out, because I do recall what got me to review it in the first place. The council were around here doing some work on the house, because we rent from the council, and the fella who came round, I had a couple of beer bottles up on the side. And he said to me, "Oh, have you tried the King Goblin stuff?" And I said, "No." And he says, "Oh, you got to try that." He said, "That's a lovely drop. That's the one I'll go to." He says, "You've got to be careful, it's a bit strong." I thought, well, I'll give it a go and I'll review it on the channel. And I do recall it being okay at the time. Now, obviously, my palate wasn't as developed as it is now. Basically, I hadn't tasted as many beers as I have now. So I thought, let's go back and let's review it. And also, I want to check out if Sofa King Drunk is right. Now, there's no right and wrong answers, and this is not having a dig at him. If I don't like this, then tastes vary, and I've seen it in the comments before on the channel where people have that's little Bob. I don't know what the fuck he's up to. I do get the odd comment where people say, "Oh, I don't know how you can rate this as high or as low," because they like it. Well, everyone's taste is different. I just give you my opinion on these videos, and I've said this loads of times, but I'm going to reiterate this. They are just opinions. It is subjective. Don't get your knickers in a twist if I don't like a beer that you like. But I will get my knickers in a twist if you like French beer. So there you go. Anyway, this is King Goblin. This is from the Wychwood Brewery, and they are based in a place called Witney, which is in Oxfordshire. They are named after the Wychwood Forest, which borders Witney, an ancient forest, no doubt, of scientific interest to the UK, so that's a preserved forest. But the brewery was originally founded in 1983, and in 1983 it wasn't called Wychwood, it was called something else. I think it was called the Kenny Brewery or something before that, because the fella who bought it out, I think his name was a Mr. Kenny, and he named it that, and then it was renamed to the Wychwood Brewery. It was taken over by a company called Refresh, I think in 2002, and that was owned up as a Mastons subsidiary, and in, I think it was 2008, Mastons bought that out. And I think, excuse me, I think that's when you could put down to the quality of Hobgoblin going down, because I did like Hobgoblin. It was a real nice beer. I used to drink that quite often. I remember there was a gig, the best pint of it I had was a gig in Brixton, and there was a pub, and for the life of me I can't remember, but I do recall a pub venue in Brixton, probably long gone now, but I remember going to a gig and the beer on there on tap was Goblin, and it was really nice. And yeah, I don't think I've ever tasted a pint as good since then. Goblin now, I think it's a joke. It's not really my thing, to be honest. Some people like it. It was one of the best selling bottled ales in the UK, if not the best selling. I don't think that's the case now. I'm not sure what it is now. I know the best selling ale, if you can call it that. It sticks in my fucking throat when I have to say that, but John Smith's is the best selling, believe it or not. Fucking hell. We really are served up some shit in this country, I'll tell you. But I digress. A little bit of information for you. If you've ever shopped in Lidl and you've seen their own brand of beer, it's called Hatherwood, then you may have tasted it. If you think it's okay, it's brewed by Wychwood. So Lidl's own brand beer is brewed by the Wychwood Brewery. I think Aldi's is brewed by Shepherd Neame. So there you go. Anyway, I am digressing. Let's get this open and let's see what's going on. Right, this is a 500ml bottle. It's 6.6%. On the back it says King Goblin Ruby Beer. The king of legends, deep ruby in colour with aromas of treacle, toffee and dried fruits. Brewed with a blend of the finest crystal and chocolate malts. I'll get onto the ingredients in a bit. Brewed with the finest crystal and chocolate malts and with the addition of sovereign hops, packed full of sweet caramel, coffee and earthy roasted malt flavours for a warming seal of approval. Now, chocolate malt is self-explanatory. It's like a dark roasted bitter type of malt, gives it like a dark chocolate type character to the beer. You've also got crystal malts. I've explained crystal malts in a lot of my videos before, but it's basically the sugar from the malt that's generated from germinating malts, which are kilned, which kills off the little buds, and it leaves the sugar in there, which gives beer a nice sweetness to it, which you do find quite a lot in good English beers, I have to say. Then there's the hops. Now the mainstay of most English beers is Fuggles. Fuggles you'll find in all good quality English beers. Surprised they put them in here. I'm not sure whether they are loose leafed or whether they are hop extract or even hop oil, whatever. But Fuggles you will find in quite a lot of good English beers. Their characteristic is woody, earthy type flavours. So when I say earth, I mean if you've ever, I'm not saying go out and fucking eat a mouthful of mud or anything like that, but you do get that, that mustiness that you get on certain English beers. Mustiness when it sounds horrible, but if you can imagine like a damp smell when you walk into a damp room, you get like a musty sort of aroma. That's the kind of flavour you get. It sounds disgusting, but it does go in beer, believe me. Then you've got the sovereign hops that they're talking about. Now this is where the fruit is coming from. The fruit that they're talking about in these sovereign hops is berries. So you get blackberry, black currant, that kind of thing, red berry, etc. You know the type, forest fruits basically. And you get in certain cases you get a herbal note. Now when I'm often describing herbal notes, especially in the German noble hops on their Hellas's and stuff like that, when I say you get grassy and herbal notes, I'm sort of talking about green tea. If you've ever smelt green tea leaves or you've ever tasted green tea, I'm talking about that type of flavour. And green tea is quite a good analogy of what you get with loose leaf hops if you've ever scrunched up hops in your hands, which I did down at the Tintagel Brewery. You do get, in a lot of them hops, I mean you obviously get other aromas as well, like fruit, and depending on the hop what it is, you do get certain characteristics, but on the herbal ones it does remind me a bit of green tea. So that's where you get that in the sovereign hops. There's also Styrian Goldings as well. Now Styrian Goldings are also found in quite a few English beers. They give you a nice spicy black pepper spiciness to it. Now normally good quality brewers use Challenger hops for the bitterness, but if you don't find Challenger in there, it's normally Styrian Goldings, and that's where they get their black pepper bitterness from. Certainly on the finish of a lot of bitters as well, you'll find Styrian Goldings, and they're usually grown in Slovenia, but I'd imagine they can be grown anywhere, but if you know your geology, the best ones do come from there. I think that's where it originates from, hence the name Styria, which I think is a region around Slovenia, and I think Austria as well. I think it's the Slovenian-Austrian border. So get yourself onto Google Maps and have a look and see where that is, and then you'll have a bit of an idea where these hops originate from. And then you have a hop that I generally think ruins beers, and that's Cascade. And I'm not a fan of Cascade, and I think I've worked out the reason why, and I think that reason is because it's got quite a strong grapefruit element to it. Now, Cascade hops goes well in West Coast IPAs, and maybe even East Coast as well, and all them very bitter New World type IPAs, but I don't think it goes in beers like that. Now, I've had beers with Cascade, certainly golden ales, and they're really not good at all. So I've got a bit of a downer on Cascade, and I'm in two minds whether to buy beer when I see Cascade on the brew sheet, and I didn't know this had Cascade in it. It's not really a characteristic of English ales, and certainly not dark beer like Ruby Ale either. So, but they've done that, so they obviously know best, or do they? But there you go. And that's about it, really. That's all we can give you on the brew sheet and what the beer's about. So let's shut up, get it open, see what's going on. Right, do I try my posh cap lifter to see if it works? Well, let's give it a go. Oh, and it has. I think it's realised that it can't fuck about, otherwise it's going to get made redundant. There's the cap, single red star. I don't think they're commie bedwetters, but yeah, red stars are normally a symbol of the draconian communist regime. Why am I talking about communists when I'm talking about Hobgoblin? Hobgoblin? What the fuck is old Hobgoblin? It's not, it's King Goblin as well. Blimey, this glass is bloody filthy. Right, ignore the bubbles sticking to the side of the glass. There is the beer in a glass. It's, I wouldn't say it's ruby, it's a very dark amber, copper type colour, bordering on chestnut. Aroma. Wow. For a beer that's come from Mastons, there is plenty of aroma, and it's very nice too. Definitely getting that chocolate malt and that mustiness I was talking about. They're the two big things: musty, earthy aromas and dark chocolate. And it doesn't smell half bad, and that's taken me aback. It sort of makes me want. I know these aren't actually Mastons; they're a subsidiary of Mastons, and they've been taken over. But it's if you've ever tasted Hobgoblin, this is what Hobgoblin used to smell like. It doesn't anymore. But it's nice. Typical English beer. Actually, does remind me a little bit of an alt beer. But the alt beer and the English style beers, I've just been drinking a load of alt beer. If you've been watching my reviews, it's very similar to English ales, but certain differences. Alt beer is cleaner. It's bottom fermented, obviously, so it's a little bit more drinkable. Not as chewy. And when I say chewy, I mean not as full-bodied and full of flavour, if you know what I mean. That's what I sort of call chewiness. Right, there it is in the glass. Let's get it down the hatch. Good elf. Nice. You can get a little hint of the ethanol on this, but it's quite a complex beer, I have to say. Now this is cellar temperature. If I was buying this in a pub, this is the kind of temperature I'd want it at, so I'm definitely getting all the flavours. I've just picked my daughter up. I've got this in Asda, and picked my daughter up from Rochester, and stopped off in Asda's on the way, done some shopping, and got a few beers in now. Got asked me age. Would you believe it? Geezer asked me my age. I said, I'm fucking and he said, I don't believe you. I said, all right, I'm 21. He fucking didn't believe that either. But There you go. I'll see you saying, this is not a fucking bad little beer. I can see why the Scottish fella, Sofa King Drunk, gave this such a high mark. It's quite complex. I have to say that's not bad at all. And for a beer that this is a stronger version of, now it's making me think, should I revisit Hobgoblin? I was not impressed last time, to be honest, but this is full of flavour. It really is. Now I do recall last time I reviewed it, it did have a fair amount of flavour on it, but I didn't realise actually how good it was. This is not bad. This is a bit of a surprise. I wasn't going to go into rant mode. I knew this did have a little bit about it, but this really is flavoursome. So it's quite full bodied. There's a little sweetness on there, and I think that's coming from the crystal malt. Maybe a little bit of invert sugar, but not a lot. I would say that's crystal malt. I have to say, I can get a little bit of that cascade in there, the grapefruit. It's subtle, but I can pick it up. But there's a lot of mustiness to it, a little bit of black pepper spice to it, earthy notes, typically English, and yeah, not bad at all. I would class that as an English strong ale. And I'll tell you what, not a fucking bad one either. Now I've got some 1698 in the fridge, and I'm going to do a shootout with Old Peculiar. Maybe I should have done a shootout with King Goblin, because they're more or less identical in style and flavour. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the shootout with 1698 and the Old Peculiar. But I'll tell you something, this is a worthy contender, and I'm wondering now, should I do a shootout with all three? Because this has surprised me. For a Mastons, well, I know that it's not Mastons, it is actually Wychwood, but that is a really good beer, I have to say. A little disappointing on the finish. It's not big, but on the palate the flavours are, yeah, they're good. Complex, big, bold, typical English. I mean, them Fuggles hops, you can definitely get that musty and earthy note to it. And yeah, this is not a fucking bad beer, and it surprised me. And I should have got this from me mate from Germany, because, well, I'm sure he can get it if he wanted to, but yeah, I should have probably got that. But I thought this was an embarrassment. Anything Hobgoblin now, don't get me wrong, which would do some bad beer. They do one called, is it Dry Neck? It's like a golden ale. That was disgusting. Really didn't like that. Even when I first started reviewing beers, I could tell that was a shit beer. Hobgoblin, I'm being harsh on Hobgoblin because I remember how good it used to be, and it's definitely gone downhill. But I think this is more than made up for it. And if Hobgoblin is anything like this, because effectively that's what this is, it's a stronger version of Hobgoblin. If the original Hobgoblin is anything like this, then maybe it's worth a revisit. Watch this space. Put in the comments if you want me to review it again. Yeah. The only downside, I would say, is that little grapefruit seam with the Cascade hop. I'm not sure why they put that in there. I don't know whether that's that's a bittering hop that they put in there, but I don't know. I think lose the Cascade and put something else in there. I don't know. Maybe a Challenger or something, or maybe a, I don't know. I'll leave it out and don't replace it with anything. because I don't think it's adding much to it. Much to it that I like. It's nice. It's got a really chewy aftertaste to it. It's got a good body on it. Quite full bodied. Yeah, no complaints. That is not fucking bad. So what's the verdict on King Goblin Imperial Ruby Beer? Well, I decided to review this on the strength of the Sofa King Drunk Beer Reviewer. Check out his channel. It's quite good. Scottish fella. Comes across as a real nice bloke. I think when I saw that, I thought I'm going to have to revisit that, because to give it a better mark than the Old Peculiar, which is one of my favourite beers, and I thought, really? But now I get it. I see where he's coming from, because that is a complex beer. It's got a big aroma, big flavours on the palate, full-bodied, and the only thing that's slightly putting me off is that cascade that's been put in there, and it's giving it that little horrible grapefruit, and I can pick that out straight away, the grapefruit, because I'm not a fan of it in English beers, and I've seen it in a couple of beers. Mind you saying that, I think that Burton Ale, did that have cascade in it, or did it just say New World hops? Oh, it's Chinook. That had Chinook. I always get them two confused. So it wasn't the. That was really nice. That Burton Ale. It's very much in keeping with this as well. Similar ABV, but that's a good beer. That Burton Ale. If you ever see that, I'll get the bottle up now. If you see that anywhere, get yourself some of it. That's nice. Morrison's had a little run of that, and I snapped it up, and I didn't hold up much hope. Left it in the fridge for ages. Took it out, tried it, absolutely blew me away. Loved it, and this is good. I like it. Yep. Only complaint is the Chinook, but minor gripe. Its downside is far outweighed by the upsides that are on that beer. I see where Mr. Sofa King Drunk was coming from. Check out his channel, so give him a subscription, give him a thumbs up. Check out the review that he did with Old Peculiar and that, because that's why I've done that. And that is going to be an 8 out of 10 from me. I really like that, and this could be another fucking fridge filler, because they do loads of this down in the supermarkets, and Morrison's used to do it. I don't know whether they still do. It's probably why it's not why I haven't picked it up. I know they do the Hobgoblin, and they do a couple of others, but Wychwood Beer, in my opinion, is a little bit hit and miss, but that is a fucking hit. That's 8 out of 10, and that's recommended. I'm not sure how easy it is for everyone to get hold of it. I imagine it's quite easy. Wychwood have got, well, they're tied to Mastons, Carlsberg, and yeah, again, that was another thing that was putting me off reviewing that again. I just thought Wychwood for me now finished, but yeah, maybe I should review Hobgoblin again. I'm probably going to be disappointed. It'll probably be a rant, but that is okay. So I'm going to give that 8 out of 10. I'm going to recommend it. And as I always say, beer is working class champagne.